Bear down, Chicago Bears fans. We've got a fight that broke out in practice. It's getting a little bit chippy right now. Chippy is what old guys like me say when people start to get into fights, but they don't really mean it. So, if you like this type of content, make sure you hit the like button on the way in. Let's talk about it. So, a minor brouhaha flared up. Brouhaha, another one of those words that old people use. So, here's what happens. And by the way, we're joking about it because there were actually jokes made about it. Kevin Fishbane said this: "We had a minor fracas after Javon Dexter hit on Ian Wheeler. Uh, then TJ Edwards tackled Velus Jones, and we had full on fisticuffs between the offense and the defense. Not only that, Zach Pearson said things are getting heated in practice. Ian Wheeler was hit hard by Javon Dexter, leading to some pushing and shoving. The next play, Velus Jones was tackled to the ground by either TJ Edwards or Tremaine Edmonds. There was a big pile of players pushing and shoving with some helmets being thrown. Then we have Courtney Cronin, who says tempers are flaring at practice. Ian Wheeler was hit by Javon Dexter and skirmish issue. You know, this is a fourth time maybe that I've said Jervon instead of Gervon because somebody told me it's J, which is why it's pronounced. That's why Jervon starts with a J. Duh. Next play, Velus Jones, Jones Jr. is tackled to the ground and things escalated. Several helmets were off. Cole Kmet got into the middle of it. Did Cole Kmet make somebody bleed? If he didn't, shut up. Who cares? So anyway, then they make fun of it and say, I love the terms the reporters are using: a fracas, fisticuffs, tempers flaring. This is kind of weird. So listen, here's what's going on. These guys want to win. This is a team built for right now. This is a team that wants to be much bigger than what they've appeared to be for the last couple years. If you've watched any of the preseason games, there's something that you should note. The offense, the offense 2 versus 2, 3 versus 3 has been okay. The ones have not been great. They've been okay, but not great. So the defense, however, has looked the part. The defense looks like they're playing with 15 all-stars in 7-on-7 drills. Do you know what I mean? They've been really, really good. In fact, they've been in many ways suffocating against other defenses. So you can imagine what that looks like when you're going against an offense that's struggling to find its way, trying to get Caleb Williams into his groove. So now you've got people who are, add to this, on the verge of roster cuts. Roster cuts, I think, are in about 10 days. So, and the Bears haven't really made too many moves at this point. So there are probably a lot of people out there getting real nervous. Ian Wheeler, running back, who may not make the roster, who's doing everything that he can to make the roster, finds himself behind DeAndre Swift, obviously, Khalil Herbert, Roshan Johnson, and maybe Travis Homer. So he might be the fifth man out. So also, the sixth man on that list is Velus Jones Jr. So those two guys, those two running backs, fighting for everything that they can get, probably not dealing with the pressure optimally. I mean, Javon Dexter, his job seems to be at this point secure. He's going to be the starting defensive tackle. TJ Edwards, his job is secured, going to be the starting will. So that leaves that leaves the two guys who are fighting to stay on the team, and it gets chippy. So unless there's blood flowing, don't tell me about it. However, earlier in August, the AP wrote about the NFL was fining teams $200,000 for excessive fighting in practice. So that might be why they didn't fight. But I mean, listen, um, you make a play, you celebrate too much, you feel too good about it, you dunk on somebody, you say some smart ass comment to somebody, maybe they don't like it too much. So if that's the case, we're fighting. So I think I think it's fine. I think it's very healthy for the team because what I would like to see this season is I would like to see the defense and the offense both playing with chips on their shoulders. I would like to see them pushing and shoving each other in practice. To me, that doesn't mean that they're not teammates. It doesn't mean that they're not that they don't have each other's back. That means that they want to win and they want to beat the other side. And if you're watching any of the practices, the defense looks inspired. They've looked inspired. Fighting your teammates is healthy. No, being upset with the opponent is what's healthy. And your teammates, look, we're grown men. We're not children playing a team game. We're grown men getting paid millions, hundreds of thousands of dollars. We are coworkers. We're not. When you say teammates, we can fight amongst ourselves. We don't share it with the public. And I can assure you that when you go back and you look at the fact that Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan won 6 NBA titles together, but at the same time didn't like one another, and Scottie Pippen is now saying, "Oh yeah, LeBron's the best player ever," or "Kobe's the best player ever," kind of disrespecting Mike at every given opportunity, then I assure you, you don't have to like one another in order to work well together. So I'm not concerned when players are fighting for what they consider to be their right or something like that. And these guys want to make the roster. They want to make the roster, and if you're not on that, and it is childish. It doesn't matter whether it's childish or not. Name me something that's never. Everything is settled with violence. So I mean, we can skip all the pleasantries about it. Every problem, every situation, every world ideology situation, anything. That's how it's solved. I mean, this is the world that we live in. So you're going to have conflict. And what are you telling people to do in football? Hey, I want you to go hit the shit out of this guy over here. If he comes your way, make sure you tackle him super hard. Well, and sure, people who can't solve problems. That's everybody. Everybody. So um, let's move on though, and let's talk about Matthew Judon because the third episode of Hard Knocks came out, and guess what we saw? That the Bears offered a third to the Patriots for Judon, but with a caveat. Now, what was the caveat? Well, we learned in this that there was something. The Atlanta Falcons sent a third round pick to the Pats for Matthew Judon. This is the same thing that Poles offered. However, Poles would only make the trade if the 32-year-old agreed to a contract extension. So he was trying to lock himself in for a long time. He wanted a guy on the other side of the line who was going to be locked in to work with Montez Sweat for a long time. So it didn't work out that way. Then Matthew Judon was made aware of the contract extension caveat, and then he chose Atlanta. So I'm pretty sure that what he wants to do is he wants to get himself into the open market. And by the way, it's not about team loyalty or anything like that. Matthew Judon wants to make sure that his family, that he is provided for, that he can make as many millions as he can in order to live his best life, I guess, if you will. And by the way, that doesn't mean that the Bears will not be the one of the teams that he might get an offer from going into the offseason. Very well possible that he could end up on this team, not this year, of course, but next year as a free agent. So that possibility certainly exists. However, as he is testing this market, and as we've already paid $25 million to Montez Sweat, I think it would be prohibitive at this point for the team from a salary cap standpoint to entertain a situation like this in which you're going to have to give this guy probably every bit of 20 to $30 million. So he's probably out of the running. We're probably out of the running for it, but I mean, it's out there. So maybe we should look at it and revisit it when the time comes. So Matthew Judon, we now know a little bit more because of Hard Knocks about what was going on. Also, what we learned was that Matt Eberflus' defensive scheme is getting a makeover, and that is according to Matt Eberflus. Bears coach Matt Eberflus has a defensive scheme often considered overly simplistic by critics based upon 7 men in coverage with the cover 2 zone. Vanilla is often the term given to the cover 2 style. While talking about how he wants to prepare Caleb Williams at practice with his own defense over the next 3 weeks before the regular season, Matt Eberflus on Tuesday revealed that his defensive scheme will not be as easy for opposing quarterbacks to assess in the future. We're going to give him different looks on defense with things we are putting in this season that we want on our menu board defensively. We're challenging our players right now to learn those. The defensive menu is changing. While we all usually hate that our favorite restaurants, um, it's good for the Bears because this is year 3 in the scheme, and by now the Packers are not the only team to have figured out what the Bears are going to be in defensively. Eberflus underwent a highly publicized offseason makeover. Now it seems like the defense is getting that makeover as well. It seems kind of late in the process for such a change, considering they all had the offseason to figure it out, but they've decided that they're going to do this. What you do is conceptually, as an offense and defense, and kicking is you put in the concepts, and it seems like it has a lot of the players, and it is. Those are things you're going to pull off your menu board. It's not something that is brand new to players. Okay, this is the concept, and we talked about in week 3 or week 4 of training camp, and we're able to pluck those things up off to have multiplicity in your schemes. And look, the team is going to be hard to run against. We're going to have a problem. Other teams are going to have a problem running the ball. But again, we were the number 1 rushing defense last year, number 25 passing defense. So something has to give, and there has to be some change. And if the scheme and the system is being recognized, then you got to do something a little bit different. So, what are the changes? That's not going to be revealed right now. But it is possible that we saw some of it on this past Saturday. Maybe we saw it the week before. Maybe they've already been implementing some of this and we're just kind of checking it out. I want to say this, something that we didn't see that we now saw, and this is twice, by the way, twice in the last game. Josh Blackwell with the slot corner blitz and Kyler Gordon with the slot corner blitz. And both of those led to quarterback hits. One led to a sack. So there is the possibility, distinct possibility, that we are seeing this changing team. And I'll tell you this, I was actually surprised when I saw Kyler Gordon with the hit with Josh Blackwell. Obviously, one of the things that Matt Eberflus likes, and one of the things that he's enjoyed with his defense, is trying to rush with a 4-man front and get pressure with a 4-man without running blitzes, because that allows more pass coverage. But this is, there's still something to work on here. So, I mean, this is probably being worked in already. So we'll see maybe a little bit more of this in the Chiefs game tomorrow, final preseason game before the start of the regular season. Then we'll have a 2-week gap here, of course, to get ready for it. But here we have Eberflus' defense has been notoriously lacking in blitzing for the last 2 years. They only blitzed on 22% of plays. They were 21st in blitz percentage, which is good when your goal is to always play 7 men back in coverage. However, this figure was inflated from the times they weren't getting home using 4-man rush from back prior to the arrival of Montez Sweat. When they showed up, they could cut back on blitzing. Now, if they do blitz, they can do it when they want, and disguising their looks only adds to the confusion for opposing offenses. They were 25th at 18.2% in blitzes in 2022. This is a very low blitzing team. Matt Eberflus likes the front 4 getting the pressure. And here again, here's the thing. If you that should, by the way, that sounds like a situation in which why is the passing defense not as good? Why is it 25th instead of 10th? You know what I mean? And it's very simple because it's predictable. So it'll be interesting to see what these wrinkles are and what this makeover looks like when we really see it start to develop. And if we start to see some disguised blitzes and we see some really different stuff that Eric Washington is bringing into this team, I am down for it. I'm absolutely down for it. I do want to maintain that top 5 rushing defense. I don't know if number 1 should be the goal. Playing hard on every play and being where you're supposed to be in your assigned roles, that's going to be the important part. And then calling the right plays and masking your defensive schemes is going to be paramount as well. So it could be that we're seeing Eric Washington really dip his hand into the mix. So I'm excited to see how this defense develops because, again, I think that the defense is ready for that next step and ready for the big time, no matter what. And let's move on now, because guess what? Caleb Williams is now establishing a Michael Jordan connection. Now, It is incredibly early, and there is absolutely no way to consider that there is a comparison at all to Michael Jordan and Caleb Williams. However, Caleb Williams recently gave an interview and he said something that was strikingly familiar. If you're from Chicago, then you understand. If you know Michael Jordan, if you, like me, were a massive Michael Jordan fan back in the day, then you understand some of the inner workings. Maybe you don't apply it to your real life, even, but you know that Michael Jordan did. So Caleb Williams arrived in Chicago, a lot of hype, stuff like that. We're looking for the next big thing. But here is what Caleb Williams does with criticism. Um, Caleb Williams said this: the other part, and this feeds into knowing myself, is all athletes try to act like they don't see it. I see it and I use it. I take screenshots of people. People don't know it. I have notes and things that I screenshot. I save links, all of that. I use it. There's always something. LeBron James always says, and he said this before, he only needs one thing. He walks into the stadium. All he needs is one fan, one thing through the week or before the game. Some of it is motivation and some of it is psyching yourself out. That's the other part. It's knowing myself. It's knowing what I like to know, how I like to do things. I know how hard I work. I know the confidence that I have from my work that I've put in for many, many years now. And that means, I mean, basically what you're looking at right now, most of the NFL players, they're just happy to be there. They're physically talented, they're mentally capable, they are pros. To be an elite athlete, you've got to have some kind of, most people call it a chip on your shoulder, a reason to be better or to be more than you currently are. Most people are looking for that extra edge. And the ones who find it, that have that talent, they end up becoming the elite athletes. They become the Patrick Mahomes type guys that we're looking for. Patrick Mahomes, chip on his shoulder constantly. Saquon Barkley, chip on his shoulder constantly. There are a lot of players out here who are playing with those chips, and we don't know what they are. But having this from Caleb gives us that mindset. Hey, you're in Chicago, get that chip on your shoulder, and let's see some of that Jordan-esque behavior. And you know what? We're going to love him for it. So most athletes do what you'd expect. They try to block out the noise. Everything is about focusing on the job, ignore the taunts and the criticism. And when you have an interview with somebody, they say, look, I don't let that shit bother me. I just do my job. I come out here, do the best that I can. And, God provides, or with whatever mystical deity that you pray to, that's who you thank, and all of that. Caleb Williams is among a unique class that seems to feed off negative energy. The more hate you throw at him, the more motivated he becomes to prove you wrong. Such a player is perfectly suited to play in a big city like Chicago. And by the way, how fantastic would it be when you find people who are talking about his painted nails, or crying to his mother? All you have to do is find one person on another team talking about that, and you put that up on the board and you motivate him. And then if the team is behind him, then you're motivated to protect him so that he can do what it is that he needs to do. This is perfect stuff, and I hope that he'll never be Michael Jordan. Look, we should probably recognize that he'll never be Michael Jordan. He'll never. He's probably never going to be. The odds are against. They're astronomically low that he ever becomes the next Tom Brady or the current Patrick Mahomes. Or even Josh Allen. You know what I mean? Or Joe. Well, let's just say Joe Burrow, because I don't think that Josh Allen really has gotten there yet. But he's not going to be that guy based on odds. However, it seems like he's got the mental makeup. At some point, though, we have to recognize there's the fact that he's 6 foot tall means that there is probably a height disadvantage in some way. But despite all of his physical gifts and all of his physical tools, there will be some disadvantages that he is saddled with as we get further along. Look, hand size perfect, holds the ball very well, makes all he makes good reads, he makes good rollout. He in open space, he's really good. All of the things are there. It's just refining it and making him work and work and work. And really, it's not the team that's going to make him work. It's this right here. His brain. Does his brain have it in him to work hard to make something happen? If he does, maybe he'll be great. And by the way, the list of great quarterbacks for the Chicago Bears, I mean, in one season, Caleb Williams could be considered the best quarterback in all of Chicago. I mean, I there's not a big list here, so you know what I mean. Like we'll see if we'll see how this comes. But I mean, imagine if you will, um, dude, it's not about the injury; it's about the talent on the field. It's not about the injury. Um, and you know what? It's probably unfair to hit, but this is sports mockery. Sports Mockery is talking about it. Sports Mockery put up an article about it, so we're talking about it. And is it wise to do? It does it matter to him? That's the question. I mean, listen, there are two people in the world. Those are people who respond positive to pressure and negative to pressure. 95% of people respond negatively to pressure. 5% of people rise up under pressure. So the question is, how does he react to pressure? His own internal pressure, that is. Michael Jordan had ice cold veins when the game was on the line. He made the plays, he made the throws. We don't know that Caleb Williams is going to do that. And it's difficult sometimes to see that because, you know, it's a we haven't seen him in positions where he has to go out and win games. Do you know what I mean? Like if you go back and you look, if there's somebody that I would say had ice in his veins that best to me best described that Jordan-esque sort of killer instinct when the game was on the line would have been, I would say, John Elway. I think that guy led more comebacks in the history of the NFL than anybody else. Won a couple of Super Bowls. You know what I mean? Like when the game was on the line and when you needed one guy on your team to do that crazy stuff to make that was somebody like a John Elway. So hopefully we'll be able to see, and I think that it's a pretty good analysis to see comeback wins and stuff like that as part of that. And it doesn't make him, by the way, that doesn't make John Elway like Jordan-esque. You know what I'm saying? It means that when the pressure is on, he shines like a diamond. And that's what John Elway did. You know, as a matter of fact, I guess I should say it because I hate to do this, but god damn it, Brett Favre had that in him. You know, when the game's on the line, when the pressure's mounting, when you need that play, he had it too. Tom Brady, of course, had it. Patrick Mahomes, of course, has it right now. So, you know, there are people out here who experience and have that, whatever that internal makeup is, right there, that heart, the heart of a lion, whatever you call it, that have it. So I think that he's got a long way to go, but we'll see. Um, we'll see what he does. And by the way, Jose is making a very important point. I'm not saying you're comparing him to. I'm saying the general media has been really unfair because if he doesn't turn out to be that, and they're saying it's bad for everybody, we need to just let the kid be a kid and do his thing, right? We need to leave him alone. But you know what? What Caleb Williams is saying is the opposite of what you're saying. He's saying this is the kind of stuff that motivates me to be that guy. And if you listen to any of his interviews, he says this constantly, that he is motivated to be the best, that is what it's all about. He wants that pressure. Caleb Williams says this, I want all the smoke. I want it all. So send it my way and I will use it and I will get better. So you know what? Let him cook, I guess is the phrase that you would use if you weren't my age today talking about football. So let's talk about I guess what I think is a bunch of assholes. Bleacher Report. Bleacher Report says that the team is predicting the Bears win-loss record at 9-8 for the year. So what they're predicting right now is Tennessee, Houston, Indianapolis, and the Los Angeles Rams. The Bears could not have asked for a better schedule to get Caleb Williams acclimated to the NFL. The three straight games against AFC South foes and Week 4 home game against the Rams present the Bears with a chance to leave September with a winning record. The Week 2 road game in Houston is obviously the hardest game of the quartet, but if Williams goes off in Week 1, there will be a ton of buzz about the contest pitting him against C.J. Stroud. Tennessee and Indianapolis may not sure of what they look like very early in the season, and that could benefit the Bears. So you could be looking at Tennessee and Indianapolis is what they're saying are going to be some easy wins for the Bears. And then they think that the Bears will probably lose to Houston and the Los Angeles Rams. The showdown with Matthew Stafford and the Rams will come down to how the defense slows down the Super Bowl winning quarterback. It is a winnable game to end the month, but if the Bears leave September at 2-2, it will be viewed as a good first step in Williams' career. So, what do you guys think? Because they're saying in the first 4 games, the September record is going to be 2-2. Now, I'm going to say that the Bears are going to be at least 3-1 going into this. I like Houston. I like the Los Angeles Rams, but I think we're underestimating, or I think a lot of people right now are underestimating the defense of the Chicago Bears. So, moving on to October, Carolina, Jacksonville in London. The fight, there were 2 fights. They were back to back. It was Gervon Dexter put a hard hit on Ian Wheeler, and they started pushing and shoving. And then on the very next play, Velus Jones got a handoff, and TJ Edwards taught him a lesson. And then they started fighting, and that got everybody involved. But they were throwing hands when it was Velus Jones and TJ Edwards. So now, Carolina, Jacksonville, you got a bye week in Week 7, and then you got Washington. So there's going to be 3 games, and they're projecting it's going to be 2-1. Carolina, Jacksonville, and Washington. We're going to beat all 3 of those guys. This is going to be a 3-0 October. So, in my opinion. Now, the Bears are far ahead of Carolina and Washington. However, Jacksonville in London could be a tough game because they are predicted, the Jaguars, of competing and contending for the AFC South title along with the Texans. So there is some obstacle there, but I don't think that this is going to be a horrible obstacle. You know what I mean? You know what? I think that this was Velus just getting mad because I think I think Velus and Ian Wheeler both have to protect their roster positions because they're on the outs. They're the number 5 and the number 6 running backs, or they're at least the number 4 through 6. So, if you just consider DeAndre Swift, Khalil Herbert, and Roshan Johnson are a 3-headed monster, if you will, then you only need one more running back. And you got Travis Homer, you got Ian Wheeler, and you got Velus Jones. And Velus Jones can't stop. He can't rush. He's not doing a great job rushing. He's fumbling the ball. He's flubbing handoffs. He's missing kickoffs or punt return. Whatever he can fumble, he's fumbling so far. So I think he's a little nervous. But let's move on. November, Arizona, New England, Green Bay, Minnesota, and Detroit. It's going to be 5 games in the month of November. Arizona, New England, Green Bay, Minnesota, and Detroit. So now they're calling for the Bears to go 3-2 in this. And what they're saying is the Bears should pick up wins over Arizona and New England. The Cardinals and the Patriots do not have deep enough offenses to compare with the Bears on paper. As for the divisional games, the Bears need to win their home games, but they're saying that they're not going to beat the Packers, that they're going to pick up a win against Minnesota. As for they're going to beat Minnesota. The 4-2 division record would help the Bears' playoff chances and a wild card berth if that happens. So a loss to Detroit on Thanksgiving Day is already penciled in as well. So the Bears will need to beat Arizona, Minnesota, and New England in November to keep the early season momentum, and that puts them at 3-2 in that month. So now we're talking about them having 7 wins and I want to say 5 losses at that point. December and January are going to be San Francisco, Minnesota, Detroit, Seattle, and Green Bay. And they're predicting the Bears to go 2-3 in December and January and to struggle at that period of time, ending off their season at 9-8. Now, let me say this. What they predict are losses are expected in San Francisco and Green Bay. And then they think that they're going to lose also to Seattle. So I don't know where that comes from, and beat Green Bay. So it's a little weird how this thing is lined up here, and I think what they're really trying to do, and some of these things when they do this Bleacher Report, basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to toe the line on Vegas and say, yeah, 8.5 wins, we're going to go on the high side, and then later on they can say, look, we went to the upside on it, and then you'll never look. You never really. Nobody's held accountable for predictions like this, so you know I would assume maybe we're not. So let's talk about. Let's move on from here. I'm going to say 13-4. I'm not changing. I'm not changing anything. I think this team is a lot more special, or will play a lot more special than what people are really giving them credit for and what they're thinking right now. And I think you're going to be shocked and surprised how good the Bears start to look as it all comes together. And I do want to say, when the defense, the defense, I know that there's problems on the defense. It's not without understanding, but Daniel Hardy seems to be redeeming himself very well. And then Vegas predicted 7.5 wins last year. Yes. They also predicted, I want to say there were multiple teams that had like 4 or 5 wins that they predicted 10 wins. That just because they predicted it right once doesn't mean that they predict it right all the time. And they're also pretty good. I'm not saying that they're not. So, but here's what's going on. You got Daniel Hardy stepping up big time. You've got Austin Booker looking like a stud at the at the edge rusher position. You have a lot more than what you think on this roster right now. And as this develops, and as these players get acclimated and learn the system, and there's enough players from last season that are familiar with everything that are going to make this a lot easier. So this is going to be a fantastic season. I'm telling you right now, you're going to be very shocked at the team that you see by the end of this season. And if they're bad, I'm going to be very shocked. So we'll see how this plays out. And offensively, the Bears need to solidify their right guard. Yes, they do. However, I don't think that it's as pressing as you might think, because it is my opinion that Matt Pryor has done a pretty good job at right guard in the time that he's played, but Ryan Bates as well. Nate Davis, I mean, we can just call that a failed experiment. He'll be released at the end of this year unless he steps up. If he steps up and he starts looking like the guy that we paid money for, then that might change. There might be some tremendous upside. But the people that we brought in, the remaking of that line in the spots where it needed to happen, those were for the better. I think Ryan Bates, he's been even though he's injured right now, he's been one of those guys who's managed to make it to every game. Same thing with Coleman Shelton. These guys are workhorses. So, you know what I mean? And Jose says that with a rookie quarterback, new OC, new defensive coordinator, I'll consider 8-8 a win. Then you're going to be real happy this season. You're going to be real happy this season. You're going to be surprised. So anyway, let's talk about Hard Knocks real quick. This week's episode put a bow on the Bears preseason game against the Buffalo Bills, as Matt Eberflus sat down with Williams to discuss his performance from his first start. Williams drew rave reviews as the national media gushed over the plays he made, including Barstool's Pardon My Take, that had an interview with the quarterback where he was previewed during the episode. The focus then moved from quarterback 1 to quarterback 2 as we learned about Tyson Bagent's life and upbringing, as well as his desire to show that there's more than a nice story as a backup. Meanwhile, undrafted rookie Austin Reed brought the house down with his rendition of Love by Keisha Cole. Quarterbacks were a major focus of this episode, but we also got a peek behind the curtain at the Matthew Judon trade attempt with general manager Ryan Poles and why the Bears weren't able to land the edge rusher. We watched Tory Taylor's practice highlights and reaction from his teammates. Velus Jones recounts how he and his pet ferret came to be. The rainy joint practice between the Bears and the Bengals, and the preseason game at Soldier Field. The stars of the episode were Tory Taylor, Tyson Bagent, and Caleb Williams. The best moment, picking a single moment, was the information about the Matthew Judon trade and finding out what the Bears were doing and willing to do and what they were looking for. And look, Ryan Poles was willing to let that man go and not make a move that was going to jeopardize the harmony of this team, which I think is a fantastic thing, even though he's a talented guy, because he wanted this built for the long term. And if he wasn't going to be here for the long term, he was non-committal about it, then Ryan Poles did not want him to come in and take part of it. He's looking for a long-term solution, which, by the way, leads us to a Hassan Reddick update. So, Reddick had 11 sacks in each of the last 4 seasons. He had a career high 16 in 2022. He had 58 sacks and 69 tackles over 114 regular season game. Now, here's the question. The question would be, will the Jets move on from him, or are they going to hold him basically hostage at this point without a move? The Bears have shown interest in him, and they finished up with Matthew Judon, didn't make the trade over there. But Hassan Reddick wants a contract extension. He wants to be paid well, and he wants to be on a team that wants him, and the Bears need an edge rusher like that. So if the Bears offer up something quickly and come up with a decent trade package, then there is a potential that this deal is still happening. Now, the other thing is they are discussing, and this is why it's important, they are still in discussions openly with Yannick Ngakoue about Yannick coming back. Now, they don't want to pay $8 million for him to come back, but they have $38 million in projected cap space. Here's what that means. That means they could actually bring in a heavy hitting guy. If Hassan Reddick would take $15 million per year, that would probably be, and for me, just for me, that's going to be the top end of what you would want to spend. But that may not be enough, by the way. I'm going to check Hassan Reddick. And we'll see what he looks like. But yeah, so his average salary right now is $15 million. So if we could get him in the range of $15 to $20 million, that would be good for this team. It would be and by the way, the reason for that is I'm going to pop this up on the screen so you guys can see it. But when you kind of break this down, you got to think that Nate Davis is going to be gone, right? So you'll be able to save some payroll from Nate Davis. Also, DeMarcus Walker would end up becoming expendable. So by virtue of those two salaries right there, you now have the room. But let's take that a step further. Keenan Allen right now is making $23 million. Will Keenan Allen take a pay cut in order to stay? Will he create some flexibility for the team? That's the question that you have to ask yourself right now. So who's gone in 2025? Keenan Allen. Who else has gone in 2025? You come all the way down here to Coleman Shelton at $3.5 million and Larry Borum at $3.19 million. There's going to be a lot of payroll being freed up over the next 12 months for the Chicago Bears. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity for this team to continue to grow and get better. So bringing in somebody like Hassan Reddick right now and putting that into the payroll will not be a bad thing. And there's and here's the thing, by the way, you've locked up long-term players. I mean, let's go back and let's look at who's locked up for at least a few more years. Montez Sweat, Tremaine Edmonds, Jalen Johnson, Cole Kmet, TJ Edwards. You're gonna have to deal on TJ. You got DJ Moore locked up till 2030, Caleb Williams till 2029. Of course, you got Rome Odunze as well till 2029. Kevin Byard you got for 2 years, DeAndre Swift for 3 more years, Gerald Everett for 2 years, Darnell Wright for another 4 years. Potentially 4 years. And then Cairo Santos is locked up. You've got a good core of players here that are locked up for an extended period of time. You got Kyler Gordon at least for 2 more years. Jonathan Owens is here for another 2 years. You have some opportunities right here, and you have a good core. Jervon Dexter is good until 2027. So there are some really good players that are going to develop and build. Patrick Scales is going to be gone towards the end of this year. He's on a 1 year, by the way, but Tyreek Stevenson till 2027, Zach Pickens 2027, Tyler Scott 2027, Karan until 2028, Austin Booker until 2028. Like you've got a core of players that are available for a long period of time. So whatever happens with these people that are on these 1 or 2 year contracts, I don't think they're consequential overall, because I think Ryan Poe's done a fantastic job of building talent into this roster and enough strength that over the next couple of going to be some shifts. So there's going to be some moves. Again, you might look at somebody like a Braxton Jones and Karan replacing him, and he becomes expendable. Darnell Wright. I mean, I don't know how he plays out, but he looked good last year. and we'll see whether he still does. There are players out here that, just we might get some draft picks next year. Again, we're going to have a full draft next year because we sold the farm this year, ended up getting Caleb and Rome and Austin Booker and Karan out of it and Torrey Taylor. But imagine if you can bring in 8 or 9 players next year and do the same kind of job. I think, you won't get another Caleb. You probably won't get another Rome. But I mean, look, they've done a fantastic job of mining the draft. So I would consider that the Bears are in very, very, very good shape for the next 4 to 5 years. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. That's the end of the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate each and every one of you. It's midday. It's tough to take the time, but the fact that you took the time to come out and check me out, thank you so much. Hit the like button, share this with anybody that you know, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.